to back out of the rare earth deal. And if he does that, he's got some problems, big problems. We made a deal on rare earth, and now he's saying, well, I want to renegotiate the deal. He wants to be a member of NATO. Well, he was never going to be a member of NATO. He understands that. So if he's looking to renegotiate the deal, he's got big problems.
Welcome to the SCIF. Appreciate you coming back on a Monday morning. We are Monday through Fridays, 10 to 12 a.m. Eastern, and we're basically the intelligence show for CDM.press. So put CDM.press in your daily scan. We've got a packed show today. I'm going to get right first to our first guest. Bob Amsterdam is the attorney for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and there's been a lot of developments over the weekend there, and I want to bring him in. He doesn't have a lot of time, and we'll get to the mission brief here after we talk to Mr. Amsterdam. Bob, thanks for coming on from London. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I really wanted to have you on because there was a report out over the weekend, and I'll just bring this up, that the Ukrainian Union of Orthodox Journalists essentially are condemning as blasphemy the Ukrainian government going into the Lavra, the 1,000-year-old monastery under the facility, and disturbing the graves of the saints, literally 1,000 years old. I wanted to get your opinion on that because you've been vocal about what's going on there.
Look, to be honest with you, I'm a boy from the Bronx. If I told you how I really feel, I think I'd be offending a lot of people. We give the Ukrainians unlimited money to go fight Russia, and yet they spend the money on absolutely crazy stuff. I would sooner they buy Zelenskiy another yacht rather than spend the money disgracefully disturbing the remnants of saints, a blasphemy that's occurring with US dollars based on the activities of our former Secretary of State and this mad woman that seems to have run the State Department. I will tell you, there is one man above all, even above Zelenskiy, that's to blame, and that is the Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople, who agreed with American authorities to, in breach of all religious law, remove Ukraine from the Russian church, put it in his control so that the absolute ultra-nationalists who control the church in Ukraine could engage in blasphemy and desecration of sites like this. They have taken over 1,500 churches, beaten parishioners, burned churches, set up their own iconography with Maidan replacing saints in the icons. It is incredible what we as Americans have funded. We have let these people engage in horrific practices, and yet we allow Mr. Zelensky to appear as this idol of Western civilization, a man who's running the most corrupt dictatorship, I mean, outside of North Korea, probably, and we worship him. He came and continues to renege on every deal he gets involved with, and quite frankly, you know, I'm going to be on Turkish television in an hour, and I'm going to be telling the Turkish government that on their land stands a patriarch who is liable for this blasphemy going on in Ukraine. And we are morons who worship this guy Zelensky. We've got Christian pastors from the United States going to Ukraine, complaining, and I agree with them, about what the Russians have done to churches. I totally agree. But they're doing it from Kiev, where in fact these Ukrainian lunatics are doing even worse to our church. So, you know, from my standpoint, I just can't believe. And then the New York Times last Friday writes, or even earlier than last Friday, writes an article where they talk about one of my clients, a member of the Rada, a hero of Ukraine, a man who left his family on the day of the invasion to set up a brigade to fight the Russians. Then, when he denounced this horrible law they passed to destroy our church, Mr. Yermak, who is the hatchet man of Zelensky, pulled this guy's security and basically sicked the animals of the SPU, their secret service, on him. He had to flee on foot to get away from these animals. The New York Times has the gall to say he's pro-Russian because he opposes Zelensky. So they're ready to have the man killed in his own country. They don't give a damn about the truth. They all, the entire Western press, I swear to God, the Wall Street Journal among them, they just won't say the truth about what's going on in Ukraine.
So, you know, I've been down in those catacombs under the monastery. It's quite shocking, and you're very reverent, even if you're not a Christian, to go down there and see these saints that are 1,000 years old. Their bodies are right there, and it's astounding. What are they doing? Why do they need to examine these relics? Do you have any idea?
Look, I was in those very catacombs in 1972. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to think where you were in 1972.
High school.
I was there, and you know, at the behest of probably the greatest living at that time Ukrainian historian, and I can honestly tell you, I had no idea on earth that there could be any legitimate reason other than insane ethno-nationalism, religious cleansing, so many other words I could say that I don't want to say on your show, but only the most disgusting of motives for this conduct occurs to me. And as an American taxpayer, I have to tell you, I am just horrified at it. And I know the president's horrified that Zelensky went back on his word. I'm more horrified that he's funding these bastards to go into the catacombs. Send them all to the front. We know that they're taking poor young people off the streets. We'll send these bastards to the front who are trying to spend their time examining saints and desecrating sacred locations.
So what about the Trump administration? You bring that up. That's a good point. Are you? And I asked you. We interviewed you a few weeks ago, and I asked you what the response has been from the Trump administration, and you were basically saying it's early. This was in February, I believe, and we're going to give them a chance. What have you heard anything? Is there any response? Are you getting anything out of them?
Again, I have to say to you, I'm not going to say a word. I'm not going to join the chorus of people who are condemning the Trump administration. Yeah. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that for a variety of reasons, one of which is that the vice president had the courage to stand up for the Orthodox when no one else would. Mm-hmm. I am very upset as a lawyer with these attacks on law firms. I don't agree with them. I'm going to work in support of those law firms. I will totally say this, though. I endorse the president's view that under the Democrats, the Justice Department was politicized. In fact, this morning I had a call with a 74-year-old victim of that politicization who was facing 7 years in jail because he was trying to help a Christian community get established. And I'm actually offline. I'm going to ask you to possibly have him on your show at some point.
Sure, of course.
He is a complete example of the weaponized justice system under the last government. I had with me the co-author of a book I'm in the process of writing, and the author of a new book, Dangerous Company, a guy named Sam Patton, brilliant individual. He was charged and convicted on a completely bogus FARA charge. And the prosecutor said, if we weren't trying to get Trump, you'd have never been charged. The guy did absolutely nothing, and now his life has been somewhat ruined by this experience. So believe me, they were weaponized. I understand the president's anger. I truly do. But I think we have to be careful. We're in a society of laws. These law firms represent, admittedly, the best and worst of us, but we cannot take retribution on law firms, deny them national security entitlements they've earned, especially when they're engaging in pro bono work. Yes, we're in a politicized environment, but we always, in every case I do, as you know, I'm representing the Congolese, we work all over the world. Rule of law is our principle. I mean, they don't have it in Ukraine. They have a completely bankrupt system run by the secret police. And one thing I will say about our president is, I think he's telling us the truth about Ukraine, and I don't think our people are listening to him.
I completely agree, and that's what bothers me. And then the efforts to destroy any peace negotiations are really disturbing to me from Europe and from inside the United States. But who do you think is behind this agenda? I'm of the opinion Zelenskiy is being told what to do. Do you agree with that? I mean, I think there's somebody like Macron and others who are directing these guys to work against their own people, essentially. Any thoughts on that?
Look, to be honest with you, I have felt for a long time that Zelenskiy is not acting in the best interests of the Ukrainian people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think it was the case when the war started because there was, as it's become clear, a negotiated deal on the table that's far better than anything he would have seen today. I do think that Ms. Nuland believed that the bloodletting that's going on was good for the United States. Yeah. She's bragged about it. And I think that's a tragedy. I think Ukraine has lost a generation of its best and brightest, and Russia has lost a tremendous amount of its people. But, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. I will say this. I am shocked at the British government, as well as European governments, who say that Putin's ready to invade. Let's be really damn clear. Putin has not been able to take Ukraine.
Not even Donbass. Yeah.
He has not been able to take Kyiv.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's an existential threat to Paris. I mean, I think somebody needs their head examined. I think you have a tremendous problem in Europe of a lack of leadership, a tremendous lack of leadership, and people who are rallying around, Mr. Zelenskiy like he's God's gift, and like we're into, again, I'm showing my age, but we're into the old domino theory.
Yeah.
And there is no relevance. Let's be clear. We made a terrible mistake in 2008 when we didn't push Putin further back when he invaded Georgia. We're making a terrible mistake now, not being stronger supporters of freedom in Georgia. There's all sorts of goings on we should have done that we haven't done. But this idea that Putin is going to invade Western Europe is absurd. Unfortunately, because of sanctions, we've led him into a war economy that's going to be very hard to deconstruct. And as you know, and I won't bore your listeners, I am completely against the whole sanctions process and feel that all we've done is empower Putin with sanctions. And all these liberals in the United States, these liberals and these big law firms, they have committees to throw out clients who have Russian last names. And they tend to be rule of law liberals. It's shameful what we've done to Russian Americans or Russians in the United States, all over the world, all over Europe. I think it's completely horrendous and shameful. I condemn Mr. Putin. As you know, he had me arrested. I have no soft spot for Russia at all. But this crucifixion of anyone with a Russian last name is just, it's a desecration of history. The United States, the rest of the West would not be here without Russia's participation in World War II. And we throw all of that history out, and we just, we deify a guy who's leading a country that he has led astray in terms of the terrible, incalculable cost he's visited upon the country, and the terrible impact of this law that's passed, Law 3894, that's going to destroy the 1,000-year-old Orthodox Church.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. We got about 10 minutes left, and I appreciate your time carving out today. Last time, and we've interviewed you many times, but people may not have seen it. Can you give us an overview of what's actually happening to people, Christians in Ukraine right now? You mentioned last time beatings of priests, congregations having to meet in the woods. I mean, I think this needs to get out. People need to understand what's actually happening to individuals on the ground.
Well, firstly, Todd, let me again extend my thanks. Yours is one of the only medias that will allow any coverage. I've gone to the Guardian, I've gone to the Wall Street Journal, we've gone to numerous media that won't cover it. You and Tucker have been the only people that have covered this. Under Law 3894, the Ukrainian government has the ability to destroy any church that they believe is affiliated with the aggressor state. Now, our church is not affiliated with the aggressor state at all. The only thing we have in common is canon law. They're using that very narrow hook. Since we were autonomous for over 30 years, they're using that very narrow hook as a reason to destroy the church. They're arguing that because they've convicted 25 people under some bogus charge of treason, that therefore 10,000 priests should be essentially have their communion destroyed. I mean, it is a false logic. It is something that is anathema to us in the United States. And yet, pastor after pastor goes to Kiev, applauds this new state church that's all of 5 years old, doesn't pay any attention to what they've done to our church. It's just horrific. And we cannot seem to get through to the Christian leadership in the United States that there is this religious form of genocide going on in Ukraine, by the way, at the behest of American Christians.
Well, that's the whole point. Yeah.
Many evangelicals are flocking to Ukraine. They're complaining about what's happening in the Donbass. I mean, I was as you may be aware, I was in Washington at the Religious Freedom Conference, which you should have called the Ukrainian Religious Freedom Conference, because the Ukrainians had 200 people there, including many members of the military. And they had the guy in charge, the guy who had written the bill to destroy this church, gave a lecture about religious freedom. I thought I was in a George Orwell book when I was there. I wasn't allowed to speak a year ago. This year, I was allowed to speak for 4 minutes, and they put beside me a representative of the other church to disagree with everything I said. It was a shameful act. And again, it was during the end of the last administration, and you'd think the Ukrainians were running the country.
So one thing I think I want to highlight is that, and you mentioned this before, that this church is where most of the Ukrainian population was baptized. Right.
If you were an Orthodox Christian in Ukraine, you were baptized in this church, you were married in this church up until, 5 years ago. Now, there was a church that was an independent church, and what's called an autocephalous type of church that existed. I don't want to deny their existence, and we don't deny the existence of the other churches now. But this was the main church. By the way, it still is. This is the majority church of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Our people are on the front fighting the Russians. And there are videos. If you go to SaveTheUOC.com, you will see videos of our soldiers on the front line. By the way, the most moving video is of a man on the front line talking about his village church being taken over. That man has been killed by the Russians. It's incredible.
Well, we played in the cold open and just got a few more minutes, but we played in the cold open the population outside the Kiev, I think you said Perchersk Lavra, which is the monastery, singing because they were going to lose their church, and they did lose it, and now they're going under and disturbing the catacombs. Do you know, is the new church, I think it's called the OCU, or are they taking over these buildings? Are they closing them? What are they doing? Do you know?
Look, I don't know what their plan is here. I've been in their church on this site. I went to Kiev, as you know, a year ago, followed mercilessly by the secret police, who then beat up the priests I met. They often take over churches or turn them into museums because their followers aren't very religious.
Right.
And this is a crazy thing. They take our churches, steal them, and turn some of them into museums or discotheques. Wow.
What else, Bob? Anything else that needs to get out on before we let you go? I know you got to run to another meeting.
Look, I just want to repeat again that people should speak to their members of Congress, speak to their church leaders about what's happening to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Unlike Mr. Zelenskiy, who goes from country to country begging for billions, we're only asking for the consideration of our church being allowed to stand and having people pray. That's all we're looking for. And why it has not become a political issue in the U.S. when we funded to the tune, I guess, in excess of $100 billion, and why our own Constitution and our own rights are being violated. And there's so many American members of the UOC living in Kiev and Ukraine. It's just all beyond me. So again, thank you so much, Todd, for listening to us.
Well, Bob, we'll have you back down the road as things progress. Thank you for your time. Take care. We'll be right back with the SCIF.
You too.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. These pack a punch that, you know, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. You know, we think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. I'll throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, you know, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker's stealing all the out because...
Welcome back to the SCIF. We didn't go through the mission brief because we had Mr. Amsterdam on and he had to go. But today is March 31st, 2025. Here's your mission brief. Marine Le Pen to be imprisoned, prevented from running from office. We're going to talk with Thierry Laurent about that in depth here in about a minute. Narratives out of Moscow on the car bombing are false. Again, you got to know who you look at for good news because there's a lot of false news out there. Trump says Zelenskiy will have big problems exiting the mineral deal. Qatargate in Israel. We're going to dig into that in the second hour. And Canadian banks in the U.S. face terror investigations. All this is really critical. We're going to talk about all of it, but I want to bring on Thierry Laurent right now. Thierry, big news out of Europe. I want to bring this up real quick. Tyranny in Europe. Marine Le Pen barred from running and may go to prison. You can see that on CDM right now. What is happening, my friend?
Well, thank you very much for welcoming me again on your show. It's always a great pleasure, in fact, to discuss with you. So basically, as usual, you remember, I like to contextualize, in fact, the political situation or the events that we are commenting on your show. And I would like to go back to what is the role of Macron in this story. So we have been understanding that he is protecting, as a Serber, the agenda of the globalists within Europe. Mm-hmm. We know that they have the intention to federalize all the European states and to eliminate completely the notion of states, okay? So we have been seeing what they have been doing in Romania. They have been blocking Călin Georgescu from being elected as a president. In Moldavia, you have the opposition, Gagauzi opposition of Maia Sandu that has been jailed in an arbitrary manner. Her name is Evgenia Guțul. Mm-hmm. We see now that the new German chancellor has been deciding, in fact, to crush politically Orban because he has an anti-war position and he's blocking every decision, in fact, to fulfill Ukraine with weapons and money. And we are seeing also Macron and Starmer that are meddling around with Zelenskiy in Ukraine regarding, in fact, the famous memorandum that Ukraine and Russia has been signing to protect the infrastructure, energy infrastructure. Sorry. Mm-hmm. What we have been seeing since the agreement was signed up on last Wednesday is that Ukraine has been bombing massively lots of infrastructure within, in fact, the Russian territory. This bombing was made with missiles that were conducted with guidance from French and UK satellite. So basically what we're understanding here is that the European Union is doing everything possible to make sure that Donald Trump will be failing regarding the settlements of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So basically, what we are measuring here is that the deep state coming from the United States is controlling completely, in fact, the European Union, the Commission, and most of the statements that are running the countries. So remember the psychology of Macron. He is a revengeful, psycho kind of guy. And he wanted, in fact, to get back at Trump for the story of Candace Owens with Brigitte, okay?
Yes.
Not a woman, she is a man. He is
just for our audience, that's his wife, who Candace Owens says is actually a transvestite or transsexual or whatever.
Yeah, we don't very much know what is it. And actually what is funny is that Candace was inviting Macron, in fact, to sue her, and she would be paying for the lawsuit that would be applied within her state in the way that she will be cleaning everything. And the guy is not following up for one reason, is that if the judge is ordering a karyotype DNA analysis, you can imagine, in fact, the mess that this would be provoking. And actually, this is a major problem of security for us, because a lot of states are blackmailing Macron, who became, in fact, a sort of puppet that is completely driven from influence, external influence.
So Thierry, you have a situation where a guy's a not popular president of France. He may be married to a transgender person, and he wants to start World War III. I mean, quite the situation you have in France, my friend.
Sorry. You know, I have a lot of friends in Russia, and very high-profile people, journalists, politicians, and so on, and pretty close to President Putin. Everybody's laughing like crazy. You cannot believe. They are making fun of this guy like you would not believe how it is happening. So let's go back to what is happening and the reason why it's happening, actually. We have been hearing that Marine Le Pen was blocked from the next election. She has been sentenced with 4 years in jail, with 2 assigned to residence with interdiction of, and she's forbidden, in fact, to come out of her own location, okay? And she has to pay a fine of 100K. Why this? She is supposed to have used her deputies within the European Union resources for political means in France. It is very difficult to make the difference between a European deputy who is attending also within, in fact, the parliament in France, and his real position. So basically, this is the same person. How you can split the guy and say, oh, you are going to work 5 hours for Marine Le Pen within, in fact, the French territory for political means inside inside France, and then after you're going to work 5 hours within the parliament. It's a nonsense. So basically,
that's what they're getting. That's what they're getting her on, is like she misused resources, allegedly. Is that what?
So basically, this is just a pretext to make sure that she will not be able, in fact, to run the country. And there are political agenda that are linked, in fact, to her election. So we have been seeing this kind of, how to say, behavior later on with Eric Zemmour, who was pointing the finger at a story that has been occurring about 2 years ago. There is this young man called Thomas Perotto, who has been murdered by a gang of Muslims that has been meddling around within a private party of between sports member, and the kid has been killed with a gigantic knife, a 10-inch blade, and the guy was just justifying that he has this blade because he wanted, in fact, to cut his drug, hashish. So a journalist has been assigned, in fact, to cover up what has been really happening by saying that that was just like a sort of dispute between young people, when in fact there was an intention of this gang of Muslims coming there, in fact, to kill white men. Okay, and they are very, very young guys playing around with their friends, 16 years old. So Zemmour has been saying that this crime was just white oriented, and the justice has been condemning him to 9,000 euro in fine or 2 years in jail. This is just crazy. It means that right now, whatever is happening within my country, we cannot name it the way it is. Yes. And I see in the back end of this story, in fact, the agenda, in fact, to mix the population by justifying the migration coming from Africa and the Middle East.
So Le Pen is very much ahead in the polls right now, right? If she was able to run.
We have been receiving a poll Sunday morning from the GDD. This is like a newspaper in France. And she was 46% ahead. Wow. So basically, we are understanding that she had a major position and that she had all the chance necessary, in fact, to become the next president. So let's go back a little bit. That's why they put her in jail. Yeah, let's go back a little bit in the history to understand what is the mechanism that has been implemented that brings us, in fact, to this story. About 12 years ago, Cahuzac, the Minister of Economy, was caught into a financial scandal because he was the chairman of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. And we have been discovering that he had an account within Singapore in a bank with 8 million euro. So basically, he was dismissed. He was punished by the justice. And they have been tightening, in fact, the rules on the judicial point of view, which made, in fact, the following campaign even more difficult. Remember what has been happening in 2017 with the presidential election that was proposing Jean-François Fillon, the former prime minister, against Macron. So basically, because the Bilderberg didn't like that he was too close to Russia because we need, in fact, natural resources to run our economy, they have been finding a pretext of a suit that was offered to make sure that he will be expelled of the presidential campaign. So basically, for a story of suit, it's a 6,000 euro free suit story. Our prime minister was not able, in fact, to run the country. This is becoming very crazy, this story.
Yeah.
So basically, the reason for which Macron was very scared of the president of Marine Le Pen is that she's anti-war. She has moderate views regarding the economy. She didn't want the federalization of Europe because she has a more nation-oriented view of the European Union. And so basically that was a pretext, in fact, to block her because she was going against the agenda of the globalists.
Thierry, let me ask you, can you stay for one more segment? I'm going to take a quick break. Can we come back? Do you have a few more minutes? Okay, we'll be right back. Got to just pay some bills. Stay tuned.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. he wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, "You use Alp?" "Yeah, I do," says my friend. "So do I," says the cop. "We all do." He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, "Drive safely, sir," and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine marriage.
We're back with the SCIF with my good friend Thierry Laurent from France, and I had some 1812 music there for you, Thierry. But you were talking about what's going on with Marine Le Pen and Macron, so I'll turn it over back to you.
Just one parenthesis open. I have been hearing, in fact, the music of James Bond. You know that Macron has been ordering, in fact, to test the DB9 because he wants to look like Daniel Craig. This is becoming ridiculous. Everybody's making fun of him, you know.
Well, the video of him inspecting the troops, I mean, he's channeling Napoleon, it looks like. Or trying to, anyway. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, the reason why Macron is very afraid that Marine Le Pen will be running the country is for several reasons. The first one, she will ask for a major investigation regarding, in fact, the fake vax. Mm-hmm. The second one is the piggy bag commission of the funds that were sent to Ukraine. Okay, because we know that the European Union has been sending $16 billion. And those 16 billion has been disappearing. So you can imagine if we are putting our nose within some Cayman Islands banks and discover whatsoever we are not supposed to discover. There is other things, is that Macron, when he was working for the Rothschild, has been selling an amount of infrastructure, industrial infrastructure linked to the security, the industrial security of our country, which is gigantic. I've been discovering these numbers with a legislative lawyer who was telling me that 220 companies were sold. He has been touching major commission, and those commission has been smuggled. When he was minister,
so you're saying he's selling off national assets and taking a cut. Is what you're saying.
Example, Alstom. And they are making some turbines that are very necessary for our nuclear industry. Mm-hmm. And right now, he has been deciding that he will be rebuying the turbine factory that he has been selling to the United States. So this is becoming very crazy, you know. It's like I sell my assets, I get a commission, and then I rebuy it because this is the French people that are going to pay for that.
It's very similar to the carousel of money laundering we see in Ukraine, where the Americans give aid to the central bank. The central bank sells it to a broker dealer, the fixed income assets at a discount, and then the third party, oligarch broker dealer sells it back to the bank at full price, and they pocket the commission and send it to the Cayman Islands. I mean, that's exactly kind of similar to what you're saying, right?
And actually, what I would love is to see Donald Trump sending, in fact, Kash Patel to investigate what has been happening in terms of transactions between Ukraine and the Cayman Island, because this is a mechanism that they have been using very often. I remember in 2016, the Senator Stockman was writing a letter to his peer in the US saying that there was a transaction of $600 million that has been sent to Kiev, and they have been seeing the same transaction of $600 million few days ago going back to Cayman Island. So basically, we understand where is the money now, It's not very complex, in fact, to find it. So if
well, let me ask you about who is going to take Le Pen's place to run for the presidency, because it looks like
that is a very, very big problem, my friend. Very, very big problem. We have the president of the party that has been created by Jean-Marie Le Pen and run by Marine Le Pen, with Jordan Bardella, a young, how would I qualify him? A young, a young gay without any educations, very arrogant, very clean on himself, very cut, that is completely driven by the left, because when you listen to him, it is like Macron from the far right, you see? If I have been listening to the last speech he has been giving within, in fact, the European Parliament, I had the feeling that it was von der Leyen who was speaking with a suit. It was just incredible.
So they're already trying to push him to take her place. I read that this morning.
Well, the problem is 29 years old. Would you give the hands, the key of the country to a 30-year-old guy? Yeah. I don't think so, because he's inexperimented, and on top of it, he has absolutely no understanding, neither education of economy or international relationship. This guy is just like a joke. He has absolutely no credibility in regard of the electorate that Marine Le Pen has been able, in fact, to gather. So what would be, in fact, the outcome of an election if he was represented? Well, we already know, in fact, who is going to be elected in this case. That would be, in fact, Edouard Philippe, the former prime minister of Macron. And don't forget one story that nobody knows. In 2021, Edouard Philippe has been convoking in his office, when he was a prime minister, Marine Le Pen, and giving her, in fact, the guidance. They say, we know what you have been doing on a financial point of view. We are going to sue you, and you will be in deep trouble. So basically, this is your lines of conduct. No NATO exit, no Euro exit, and no EU exit. Right now, you can do whatever you want. And so basically, she had, in fact, the two hands tied up in the back. What has been happening when Macron decided, in fact, to dissolve the parliament right before the Olympic Games? He has been slapped within the European Union because his party was completely denied by the electorate. So basically, he decided, in fact, to dissolve the parliament, to reorganize the election. And at the end of the story, he had no majority within the parliament. So basically, he has been struggling, in fact, during 3 months to constitute a government, which was a sort of puzzle of everybody within every parties. We had Barnier, who was supposed, in fact, to present a budget. When he presented the budget, everybody has been refusing it, and Marine Le Pen was the one that has been triggering, in fact, the censorship. So basically, Barnier was ejected. She has been taking her revenge in regard of the budget that was proposed, that was about, in fact, to squeeze French people with even more tax. And basically, what Macron has been doing is say, okay, you did this, don't worry about it, you're going to pay, in fact, the higher price. So now we have a new prime minister called Bayrou. And this guy is caught into a very nasty story of pedophilia in his region that he has been covering during 10 years. So basically, I do believe that he's going to be expelled very soon. So you can imagine, in fact, what is the mess within the territory is just terrible, absolutely terrible. But the conclusion of all of this is that we have a guy that is heading, in fact, the Rassemblement National Party of Marine Le Pen, who is uneducated, who has absolutely no chance, in fact, to be elected. And this is the reason for which, in fact, this prosecution is happening. Therefore, the future presidential election are completely twisted because we already know what is going to happen, except if Monsieur de Villepin is applying, in fact, to the presidential election, then this is going to be a big fight. Okay, and he is more moderated, and he has like a statesman attitude, which might be certainly a better approach, in fact, to our country. But nevertheless, we are facing a total denial of democracy, because there is absolutely no proof that Marine Le Pen has been enriching herself, and therefore, whoever has been enjoying, in fact, the salary that he has been touching was not falling in her pocket. Therefore, she could have been punished somewhat to reimburse a certain amount of money,
right,
whatever. But on a political point of view, this is very dangerous to leave judge, in fact, saying who can apply, in fact, to presidential election or not.
Well, when you have what's going on in Romania, and then I read this morning that the Polish government may not accept the Tusk government is working for Davos as well, so they may not accept election results. And you have Germany saying, the new government saying they're going to punish Orban in Hungary. So do you think Macron will go along with that to work with Merz to stop Hungary from being able to vote and cut off funds to Budapest?
Well, what I am understanding is that the European is acting like a sort of a wounded beast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they see that the situation is drifting, that they are out of control, and they will do whatever necessary in the way that they will stay under control. Until the moment they will try to impose this famous CBDC, they will puncture the saving of the European people. At this moment, I do believe that the situation can drift to something very dangerous. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, there is the quid of the population reaction regarding what is happening to Marine Le Pen.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to behave like lambs, or are they going to behave like lions? You don't know. There might be a lot of protest in regard of the decision that has been taken. This is becoming a major risk for Macron now, because the more he is pushing to get control over the population, the more people are going to resist. And what we are seeing is that today, on Monday, 30th of March, France has been becoming a totalitarian rogue state. And this is, in fact, a sort of Soro-Bidenization of our country that we are witnessing.
Yes, it is. But, you know, I had some colleagues in Paris who were trying to watch some videos on our site, and they were asking me, what's wrong with the videos? And we use Rumble because it's, you know, it's an alternative to YouTube, which was banning everything. But France banned Rumble, so you can't even watch videos in France that are not approved. It's quite stunning.
Well, not only Rumble, we have a lot of mechanism of censorship that has been implemented that makes us in the incapacity to see a lot of alternative websites. You see, for example, in United States, Russia Today America can broadcast, in fact, their news and their report. Actually, I know a pretty good reporter within this channel. It's called Michael Malouf, who used to be an advisor at the White House. And well, this is called a freedom of speech. You need, in fact, to leverage the opinion of different parties in the way that you can put up, in fact, your own opinion. But in France, right now, we have absolutely no opposition of opinion. There is a channel called CNews, but if you are listening to them properly, they are in the opposition, but not too much. They are very, very careful regarding what they are saying, because they know that if they open their mouths too much, in fact, Macron has a capacity with the ARCOM, which is a sort of organization of censorship, in fact, to be completely shutting them down. And actually, this we are feeling right now that we are living under the USSR, something like 50 years ago. This is just crazy. As soon as you are opening your mouth and you are saying things that the government would not like, in fact, you're going to get censorship, and you will not be able, in fact, to operate the proper way, the way that you are thinking. And actually, even the alternative media on the web, they are very, very scared to talk. You remember what I have been discovering regarding, in fact, the COVID that has been tested in Ukraine before pandemic through a different level of screen companies that were financed by Black & Veatch. And this is, in fact, the DoD that is financing all of this stuff. If I was daring within interviews that I'm conducting within those channels to talk about the COVID tested in Ukraine before pandemic, I would have been shut down immediately, and the guys would have been erasing, in fact, the piece of talk that I would have been putting together. So basically what we're witnessing here is that there is absolutely no freedom of speech in France anymore. This is becoming a totalitarian state. And actually, President Trump need to be very careful regarding, in fact, the behavior of those guys, because they have been supporting Kamala Harris, and they cannot bear the fact that Trump has been taking over the office. They are still following, in fact, the globalist agenda, and they will do everything possible to make sure that they will screw, in fact, the situation on the international scene.
Well, Thierry, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about your book, Ukraine, A Warning to the World. Highly recommended. It's by historyofbooks.com, or you can buy it anywhere else. But where else do people follow you, Thierry?
You can go on Telegram or YouTube on my channel called Global Geopol.
Okay. Thierry, thanks. We'll have you back. I'm sure this story is not going away anytime soon, so we'll have you back as more developments happen.
Just want to tell you, I've been seeing a report that you have been publishing on Tsarism website regarding, in fact, the arrestations of the men that are supposed, in fact, to be recruited, in fact, to go to the front line. Yes. This has been running for the last 18 months. And actually, a few months ago, a man in Odessa was shot in the head by the TCC in front of his wife and his kids because he refused, in fact, to go to the front line.
Well, why don't we play that real quick? I'm going to play that video because it's important. This is the mobilization effort inside Ukraine, mobilization in air quotes. But here we go. Well, that's hard to watch, but that's the military recruitment in Ukraine. They just snatch guys off the street, send them to the front, and they don't last very long. So
it's happening,
really horrible.
It's happening all over the places in every city in Ukraine because the men, they have been understanding that they are serving the interests of Zelenskiy and not the interests of Ukraine. They are sick and tired of this situation because they are sent to the front line with no training, with no equipment, with nothing. And on top of it, in fact, they are asking, the military ministry is asking to the soldier to buy their own equipment when it is completely sent for free in Ukraine. So you can imagine, in fact, the type of traffic that is going on there. This is just disgusting. And actually, I have like a small scoop for you. I have been in contact with the lawyer that has been investigating the massacre that has been taking place the 2nd of May 2014 in Odessa. He's a good friend because my girlfriend was one of his friends, okay? He's living right now in the Balkan, and I have been discussing with him. He has like a huge...
This is where a lot of people were burned in the building, correct?
Yeah, not only burn, because in fact, what has been happening, and I have all the pictures, he has been sending me a lot of documents regarding, in fact, what has been happening. In fact, the people, they have been murdered inside the building, and then after they have been burning the building to hide what they have been doing inside. And I will send you a few pictures of what has been happening there. It's just disgusting. So basically, my friend over the phone yesterday was, he's a lawyer, okay? And he said, you know, I'm just begging Russia to come in Odessa because we are sick and tired of this regime. It needs to stop. We need to expulse them because they are abusing the population for a way too long right now.
Well, Thierry, we'll wait for that and we'll discuss it honestly, as we always do. So thank you for coming on, and we'll have you back soon, I'm sure, as Le Pen's story really, we'll find out what's going on in Europe. Take care, my friend.
That will be a great pleasure. Thank you very much, Todd. Have a good day. Bye.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, you know, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, you know, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We're slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Welcome back to the SCIF, where we talk about things you may not see or won't see anywhere else most of the time. We've got a treat for you here in a second. Marjorie Wildcraft is coming on to talk about how to grow a lot of food, even if you're out of shape, and how to do it really effectively in a small area. So she's head of the Grow Network and just a real treasure and a resource that we like to bring to our viewers. So I think you're really going to enjoy that. And we have Dr. John Waterman in a minute, who is a nutriopathic doctor. And we're going to talk about, he developed the Nucleo Boost, which we talked about. And we're going to get into the mechanics behind that, but also how to be healthy and really take care of your body. We're going to get in between those two, some of the other stories we're talking about, but she's there. I'm going to bring Marjorie on now. Hey, Marjorie, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Todd, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's been a while. Hope you're doing well. Are you down in Puerto Rico? Where are you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm loving it here. Yeah.
Cool. So one, you had a new product I want to talk about, but people may not have seen you before. So give us an overview of your company, what you're doing, what your mission is in life. And it's quite fascinating. I found out about you on YouTube, and I had to contact you, but go ahead.
Yeah, so my first degree is electrical engineering, and then I became a professional investor. I was inspired by Robert Kiyosaki and moved to Austin, Texas, created a real estate investment business that was so successful. He had me on his infomercials for like 4 years, selling Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I made my first million before I was 40. I was loving it. I thought that's what life was all about. I was volunteering on a project to get locally grown food into an elementary school, select organic farmers. And this is outside of Austin, Texas, which is quote unquote progressive.
Right.
Whatever that means. Anyway, that project was a complete failure because we found out that there are not enough farmers to provide even part of the vegetables for one small rural elementary school. And, Texas has some big counties. And I actually, it was just, I had organized the meeting room and everything. I was just shaking for hours after that because I knew there's only 4 days worth of food supply in the grocery store. I knew that food traveled on average 1,500 miles. And I was surrounded by 20 million Texans who were armed to the teeth. And I'm like, oh my God, everything else I've done in my life is irrelevant. That's not important. There's lots of people.
And this was before they started destroying the farms and the chickens and the eggs and, the beef and all of that. So you were very prescient.
Yeah, there's been a war on farmers going on here in this country for many, many decades. But yeah, all those concerts that Willie Nelson did to try and save the small family farm, they didn't work.
Yeah,
which is a shame. And we do have a small, group that are starting to come back up and say, hey, wait a minute, we realize that this is really important. People are getting sick, they're dying. The expected life expectancy is dropping in the United States. It's got to do with food. It's got to do with nutrition. Love that commercial you had with John B. Wells on there. I love John.
Yeah,
it's about food, and I'm definitely an advocate of supplementing. But the best food that you're going to have, what your body really needs, is real food that comes from the ground. And actually, it's going to be even better if you grew it yourself. So, and that's the blessing in this whole thing. It doesn't take a lot of time. You don't have to be, you can figure this out pretty quickly. And it's available to everybody.
Well, you've been really out front on that. And I actually used a lot of your techniques on my back deck to grow a lot of food in a small area, even if you're out of shape.
Yeah.
But but you've got a new product that you're working on. Do you want to talk about that some? And I'm going to bring up our link to your stuff here, but go ahead. You can find it. Go to cdmfood.com. You can find all of Marjorie's product offerings at the Grow Network. But go ahead, Marjorie.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of people so there's health is basically two things, and it's very, very simple. And I actually got to talk to you a little bit later on about the Maha movement. I have some backstory I'd like to discuss with you, but
sure.
It's basically we need to increase our nutrition and decrease the toxicity. It's very, very simple, right? And basically there is no nutrition in the commercial food supply. There is just none. I can show you charts over the last 100 years. It's completely gone.
Is that because of the soil, or is it because of the pesticides what is it? Why is even organic, I've been told, doesn't have a lot of nutrition in it?
It's absolutely true. Stanford did a big study a couple of years ago, and they compared conventionally grown with organically grown. And it used to be with organically grown, you could say you weren't going to have as many toxicities in it, but it's not any more nutritious, which is kind of surprising, right? And that's got to do with the USDA usurping the organic brand. Right? They got into it, what was it, 12, 15 years ago. Actually, I had overheard a conversation with like a vice president with Archer Daniel Midland. He says, yeah, we're going to let you guys build up the organic brand, right? The concept of organic, and then we're going to take it over. And that's exactly what happened. So organic does not mean anything really anymore.
Yeah.
And there really isn't. Other people have had some really, really deep concerns because, there's the chemtrail spraying. What people don't realize is every city municipality in the United States, you probably haven't thought about this. When you flush the toilet, the the biosolids get composted.
Mm-hmm.
They bag that up and they call it organic compost or organic soil and sell it to you in those big 40-quart bags. They also sell it by the truckload to farmers. And I know personally many organic farmers that believe they're growing organically, and they're using that stuff, and that stuff is loaded with everything that is flushed down the toilet. So forever chemicals, heavy metals.
Yeah.
What your Aunt Julie didn't want anymore with that, cabinet cleaner, whatever people throw down, the drugs, or even just the stuff in the pharmaceuticals in their bodies they go through. It's absolutely toxic, just completely toxic. And people have been using this everywhere, though, and it's in the food supply. It's everywhere. So I've had a lot of people going, hey, wait a minute, the soils are absolutely toxic. They're also devoid of nutrients, and you're asking me to grow my own food, and first of all, growing your own food in your backyard is going to be a whole level higher of quality because that toxicity is everywhere. So, but then I was involved with a group, and these two guys who claim to have a very all natural, using microbes and minerals way to detoxify soil from forever chemicals and glyphosate. And at first I was kind of, laugh. I'm like, get away from me. And there's a reason they call them forever chemicals, right? But because of this other project we were on, we kept interacting, and I finally said, okay, well, I'm just going to test this. And you have to test everything in this day and age, right? You can't believe anything anymore. I'm pretty sure that Alex Jones is an AI, right? So anyway, I did, and I used paste. I said, well, I don't know about all that. I'll just test for forever chemicals because that's like the most health concerning. And I bought some of that. I affectionately call it shit soil from the city, which it's everywhere. It's hard to avoid actually, and put it in a garden bed, and I had a control bed, and Pace Analytical Labs is the largest certified lab in the United States for all kinds of testing like this. And we have absolutely verified forever chemical destruction. I'm now running a series of tests to do more verification. And then also I'm running glyphosate as another test. I'm still trying to figure out what labs and how to do the testing to verify that heavy metals are actually, these guys claim it'll turn it into essential fatty acids. And I'm like, you guys, that we're talking like, chemistry science that is definitely not talking school. And they said, yeah, absolutely. Schooling is not meant to educate you. It's meant to make you a nice little consumer.
So but just for our audience, we're going to put the link to this product in the description later. But when we post this, go ahead. Yeah,
we're calling it the Soil Detox Kit. And I've been videoing. I mean, my main video source is Substack. And I've been documenting everything. And since then, I've got one national laboratory that is duplicating the results, and we've been collaborating with them. And honestly, the testing for this is very expensive. So to do a before and after test on forever chemicals, it's $1,000 a pop. And so we've also been doing fundraising to be able to do more testing. But I'm really delighted that this national laboratory is helping because they have the budget to do a series of 20 tests at once, and they're just about to be completed with that. So very excited about that. And then just looking at the email list of people who have subscribed, I do know that there are several other large companies and other organizations that are very closely watching this because there's so many lawsuits against the EPA. The EPA has known about this since the 2000s, if not earlier. They've been doing it since the 70s, as far as I know. And then, all the other companies like Dow Chemical and all these other ones that make the stuff, huge, just vast numbers of lawsuits coming at them. So,
well, there's a whole movement now in Georgia and other states to give them liability protection legislatively.
Oh my
just
gosh!
In Georgia, they just passed a thing like where even if Bayer and Kim China put on, and Bayer I think owns Monsanto, but even if they put on the label or don't put on the label, it's still okay. You can't sue them. That it can hurt you. So
it's like the 1986 Vaccine Act, huh?
Yeah.
Give them complete immunity.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So,
man, that is just terrible. So, I believe that our medicines are stronger than their toxins. And I was so grateful when I ran into these guys, and I love the product so much that I went ahead and white labeled it. And as I said, we have a fundraiser going to help. And as a part of that, people can make a small donation. By the way, this kit contains more than 1,000 different microbes. And that's where the magic happens, is we don't totally understand it, but they, go into the soils and they disassemble glyphosate, and they disassemble forever chemicals, and I've got hard scientific data to prove that. But we have a kit, and I think it's only about $400. It's very reasonable for a 1/4 acre lot, which is what most that's my community, right? My sweet spot. This would be 20 applications. So, or if you one application on 5 acres, or 20 applications on a 1/4 acre. So on a 1/4 acre lot, you can completely detox your soil, and then it also has some 90+ minerals, so it'll remineralize and detoxify your soil. I mean, this is almost everything you need for a backyard-sized place. I'd still recommend doing your own home composting, but it's incredible. It's incredibly cost-effective, and the first test I ran, I was only doing applications every other week for about 2 months, and we showed significant PFAS destruction. I mean, so in one growing season, you can completely clean up your yard and area, and remineralize it, because that's ultimately where.
Well, how do you do that? I mean, I understand the destruction of the forever chemicals, but how do you get the nutritional value back in the soil that the plants need?
Yeah, this kit has, like I said, 90 something minerals in it.
I see. Okay.
And the microbes and the minerals work symbiotically. So the way that plants work, most people think, down in the soil, those roots are just holding the plant up. But nothing could be further from the truth. The soil is a lot like the gut microbiome to a human being. So the soil should be alive with all these, worms and microbes and fungi and all kinds of stuff. And what happens is the plant needs minerals, but it can't, a plant root can't dissolve a rock or anything. You can't get it out of the soil. So, but these microbes can, and they do it on a very small level, but they can actually break down different things, and then they feed it to the plant. And in exchange, one thing that a plant can do is, with sunlight, which is energy, and carbon dioxide and water, it can make carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are carbon and water, right? And through the magic of photosynthesis, they do that. And they use some of the carbohydrates and some of that to build more of their leaves and flowers and fruits. But they also send a bunch of it out to their roots. It's called roots exudates that feed the soil microbes. So those soil microbes can effectively extend the roots of a plant for, like up in some of those old growth forests in the Pacific Northwest for miles and miles and miles. Wow. So this product is adding the microbial life to the soil as well as the minerals, so that way your plants are just unbelievably robust and healthy. But for me, the main priority is I've been able to address the issue of the obscene amount of chemical toxicities in our soils, and then also boost the nutritional content. So
that's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah. Wow. So walk us through, if somebody goes to cdmfood.com and they go into your site, where should they go? What should they look at? What's important?
Well, at cdmfood.com, what's offered there is a free webinar, and I really recommend this is the place to start. And in that free webinar, I will teach you I've been teaching people how to grow food for decades, and I have cherry-picked the 3 easiest and fastest ways for you to produce a lot of calories very quickly in a backyard-sized space, assuming that you know nothing and you're older and you're out of shape. So this will be a free webinar that, start on these 3, and I'm very simple. It's a very small garden. It's a flock of laying hens, and it's a small home rabbitry. You'll see all the details in that webinar. And then once you've got that basis going, we'll also teach you how to grow those and how to produce those. And then now we have this other product where we'll teach you, we'll be able to help you to detoxify and remineralize all your soils. So I really recommend cdmfood.com as the first. It's a free webinar. Just sign up and you'll become infinitely smarter really fast.
And we'll be publicizing the link to the detox soil kit in this video after the show, and also on YouTube and elsewhere. Anything else, Marjorie? How do people? I guess that's the best way to get in touch with you.
That really is the best way. And please do. So, in 1922, in Weimar, Germany, people were grumbling because the price of eggs had tripled in the past 2 years. By October of that year, and the price of a dozen eggs was 3 marks. By October of that year, the price of a dozen eggs was 1 billion marks.
Yeah.
It happens really, really fast. And they didn't have smartphones or internet or anywhere near the connectivity and the flash mobs and the things that we have now. So I believe that hyperinflation. I mean, we got Trump is going to announce something the day after tomorrow. He's already implementing. We know we're going into an inflationary era, and it's not going to take much to make it hyperinflationary. So and the early adopters have the advantage, right?
Yeah, for sure. You definitely got to get smart on all this stuff. Anyway, Marjorie, thank you for coming on. We're going to have you back then. We're going to really talk about this as we go forward. So appreciate your all your research, and what a great wealth of information. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Todd. Bye.
Okay, ready?
Ready.
So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALP, someone else was using a tobacco product, and then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALP, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical fur, but we do have former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20, and we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen era. Yes! So, I should say, alppouch.com, for sale now, alppouch.com, usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches, the American Lip Pillow, on sale now. Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big, proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We're going to go through a few stories here before we have Dr. John Waterman on. He's a naturopathic. I think you'll really enjoy his insight into how to make yourself and your family healthy again, and really what's behind a lot of the stuff that Marjorie's talking about nutrition. It's all tied in together: food, nutrition, health, having the right resiliency items in your home to be able to function in any kind of emergency. That's what we're about here. And we're going to continue pushing products that we think are helpful to our audience. But I want to go over just a few stories. First of all, the situation in Russia, where there was a bombing of I'm just going to bring this up here real quick. There was a bombing of actually a fire in a car inside Moscow. And there was a lot of rumors that this was Putin's automobile. we have reporters on the ground everywhere, and we can tell you that this was, yes, a fire of a luxury vehicle in downtown Moscow, but the story is BS. It was not part of Putin's motorcade, or there was no assassination attempt. There's a lot of influencers out there saying this, but they're just reading what they have seen on Telegram or whatever. We can tell you, because of reporters on the ground throughout Eastern Europe, not just Russia, Ukraine, but also Moldova, Poland, Hungary, Georgia, the Caucasus, everywhere. We have people, we know these things, we can verify things, and we can tell you that was not the case, that there was an assassination attempt on Vladimir Putin. The second story I wanted to talk about is Qatargate. Now, this is in Israel, and there has been a lot of allegations. Let me bring that story up a little closer there. First of all, there's been allegations that part of Netanyahu's staff was taking money from Qatar. Now, Qatar is the arch enemy of the Israeli government, allegedly, and they are supporting Hamas inside Gaza, Al Jazeera, and other Muslim-oriented activities. But is this just a narrative, or is it true? Because Shin Bet was saying that Netanyahu's government was taking money from Qatar. So there was the firing of Roman, who was the head of Shin Bet, and the Israelis have put in a new candidate, Eli Sharvit, who's a naval man, been in the Israeli military for decades, but he's now the head of the Israeli Internal Security Service. Now, along with that is that Iran has been threatening Israel, and as the United States as well, and they're saying they're ready to strike back powerfully if Trump does bomb the Iranian nuclear facilities. So we're staying on this story. It's important, and I just want to make sure you're aware of it. And the other story, which I found fascinating, is that the Canadian banks, there's a big story up on CDM right now. You can find it on the homepage. The Canadian banks are linked to fentanyl traffickers and money laundering for that trafficking out of Canada and with the cartels in Mexico. So with the designation of the cartels as terrorist organizations, now the U.S. government can track the financing, and guess where it's coming from? In Canada, mostly from Chinese organized crime, the triads, or whatever you want to call them, and they are linked to Chinese fentanyl money laundering. And so this is a story we're definitely going to stay on, because you have all this squawking out of Canada about Trump being a tyrant and blah, blah, blah. Well, they're actually helping to facilitate fentanyl into the U.S., which kills 100,000 or so U.S. Citizens a year. So this is another huge, huge, huge story that you're not going to hear much anywhere else, but we're going to stay on top of it. So that is what we have on our mission brief today. I'm going to run a quick break, and then we're going to have Dr. John Waterman in and discuss naturopathic health. Be right back. The bird flu is circulating. We're getting more and more press, more fear mongering, more warnings about this. First, let's start with that. What say you on?
Well, what I say is it specifically is not circulating. It's in animals. There's one human, maybe two transmissions, no human-to-human transmission. And stand by, everybody. If there is some sort of sudden human-to-human transmission, you should immediately be suspicious that gain of function was involved with that. Just the fact that they're taking an animal virus and going nuts on it in the press and talking about it all the time, that to me leads me to believe that they have concerns that somebody is doing something with that virus, because this would not happen naturally, in my opinion.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
these food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah,
so you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us today. And please, if you have any suggestions or comments or feedback on the show, please get in touch with us. You can find us via email on the website. We also check all the comments and everything. So stay in touch with us and let us know what you like, what you don't like. Put us in your scan all day long, at least 3 times a day. CDM.press, morning, noon, and night. Check out. We update the site constantly all day long. It is a news wire. You're not going to get just Telegram repeats, but actually people on the ground, like we had Thierry Laurent on today in France. You're not going to get that level of coverage anywhere else from people who know what they're talking about. So please, that's the best way you can support us, is just bring us traffic every day and tell your friends, share the links, share the videos. Wow, the videos are exploding. CDM CDTV is really growing. Our Rumble channel is growing. We're on YouTube again, and the channel's starting to grow. So if you're a YouTuber, we don't live stream there because we have to check the videos before we put them up so we don't get any strikes. But please support us there if you're a YouTuber. And just also share the podcast. We're on all the podcast providers. You can check it out in your car, listen to it on the way to work or back from work or whatever. Turn it up to 2 times speed or whatever you're comfortable with and get through it quicker if you'd like. Some people do that, they tell us. But thank you for supporting us, support our sponsors. The nicotine thing has been big. You know, I'm getting all kind of comments from people coming in like, I use nicotine to help pain, for fighting viruses, and it's changed my life positively. I'm not claiming any health benefits. I don't know, but I'm telling you what our people are saying. I'm getting comments all the time. So check out the Outpouch, outpouch.com/CDM, and check it out. Try it. See if it works for you. We're got a treat for you. Dr. John Waterman is a naturopathic doctor and really insightful on nutrition. He helped develop the Nucleo Boost that you can find at cdmnutrition.com. It's how we stay in shape and get the stamina we need to keep going 24/7 here at CDM. But I'm going to bring this video on, and I think you'll really enjoy this because he's just really I'm proud to be with Dr. John Waterman. He is a naturopathic doctor. I'm not sure what that is, but we're going to find out. And he's highly recommended, and he's developed a product to help you with your cellular nutrition. So, Doc, why don't you, well, thanks for coming on, but give us an overview of your background and how you got to this place in your life.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I've been a fan of you secretly for a long time, but it's secret only because you didn't know.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine, very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be 2 things: homeopathy and herbals or herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. But, at the turn of the century, Todd, 1900, all the hospitals in America were basically homeopathic hospitals.
Really?
So we didn't really, get into a lot of that till First World War. We had to put people back together, and that's when allopathic medicine, as we call it, shines. I mean, if you're splattered all over the freeway, and they've got to put you back together. It's kind of nice to have a drug to knock you out, you know.
Sure. What does allopathic mean? I've heard that term a lot.
Allopathic is what's known as the medical world today with medicine.
Okay.
And they really are focused on, and of late, unfortunately, just pandering drugs.
Yeah.
And they get so many pressures from the drug and pharmaceutical industry that everything's a fix. And see, then they license them. It's kind of a tight little club, and if you don't behave, then you get kicked out. There was a book written, Confessions of a Heretic, by a medical student a long time ago, that made so much sense about how bad the medical profession was hazing people in their internships and all that. Because you know, when you do that, you got to go out to the lobby and look at the TV, see what's going on in the world. I mean, you fall asleep in a locker room. It's for crying out. It's like hazing in the MD world. DOs came about, by the way, doctors of osteopathy, had a little different philosophy. And then later on, naturopaths, which actually were in existence before the DOs, but DOs spun off the allopathic world, the drug world. And guess what? The first osteopathic college was in Missouri. So, you know, it's not like you think always, you know, it goes from the east and goes across the, you know, like it's always out east and it moves across. Well, no. And you know, Missouri's got another first I'm not real proud of. They were the first to make you get a license to drive. So what's the difference? We work in a preventive way. I would like to say that we are not kind of the doctor. You would go to us if you're sick, right? You know, colds and flus and all that. Of course, we're not emergency people.
Right.
And so it's very common to consider many non-emergency things emergencies today. And the emergency rooms really get slammed with people that are too high on drugs, overdosed, you know, that kind of thing. What you really want the ERs for is the wrecks and the falls and, you know, those kind of things.
Broken bones and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And they do great. They do great. So we're not anti-allopathic, but we have exhausted the country and the people by thinking they go to the doctor first to get well. And when do you consider going to a doctor? When you get sick. So we've got to change the mindset.
Right.
And we've got to change the mindset into well care. And if you don't know,
wasn't that what supposed like HMOs were supposed to do, but they didn't, right?
Right. That's actually, yeah. Now this all came about in the early 1900s when the pharmaceutical industry came out and started actually paying for the colleges of the students to go. Okay. And then when they got them brainwashed into drugs, then they were starting to open hospitals that were doing drugs. And then they made sure the insurance companies partnered up with them, see? And then that meant that insurance companies won't pay until it's an MD on the signature and so forth. Now, there are a few states that have licensure for naturopaths, but I'd like to talk about that maybe in depth some other time. But
sure.
Because the problem is that's not needed because there's not a drug. Naturopaths don't deal in drug. Now, if you wear two hats, if you're an MD and an MD and an ND, and there are many of those, you can do both, right? But drugs aren't our wheelhouse. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. And those are, you know, that's important to know. You know, you can't get that out of doctors are brain dead stupid about nutrients. You know, they just,
well, that's become obvious. Yeah.
No, I think there's if you were to kind of symbolically say, where are we now? There's a glimmer of hope, kind of like the little tip of the sun's coming up over the horizon with a new guy on the block, both president and now somebody in charge of the federal health system.
Yeah.
And that guy's miffed. So I think we're going to see he doesn't have to be responsible to make it happen, but he needs to be there to support the effort.
Well, you know, a lot of people had scales on their eyes. We just didn't know until
Of
3 or 4
course.
years ago. And now I think a lot of us are wide awake as to the nefarious. I mean, the vaccine did horrible damage to the reputation of allopathic medicine, if you will.
Yeah, it did. And I'll tell you that in it, by the way, I did testify. I was called by the U.S. House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence about COVID. What is it? Tell me what you know. Well, it's a long story because the government many years ago in the 2000s, about 2007, there was an epidemic of West Nile down in Oklahoma, and it was they couldn't get it under control. And a colleague of mine came back and he said, the state director of medicine and the guy that running the equine hospital had 300 stalls. That's a big place, you know. Said they needed help. And so they called. He said, he asked me to ask you if you would help. And I said, well, you bet. And he said, well, before we begin, I got to apologize. And I said, why? He said, well, we talk about you.
No.
I go, oh, okay, that's all right. He says, well, we call you the witch doctor. And I said, well, I guess you could have called me worse, you know?
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, I said, get me some blood and I'll do it. So I got, they carried me some blood. I had some equipment I could do some analysis on. I found out what it was and that it was a mutated variant of West Nile and all that kind of stuff. And so I go, if they've tried everything, I'm going to pull it right out of the box and we're going to go real deep into the alternatives. Okay. So it happened to be that I knew of a very secret location of I'm not going to tell you what kind of medical, I don't want to nail them. Okay. There's a very high tech equipment group in Oklahoma City for medicine. I mean, all the equipment. These are the gurus of medical equipment. And they had found out that there had been this remission of cancer after getting MRIs occasionally, not all the time. But they were working with the hospitals all across the country and getting reports here and here and here of the same thing. So they said, what is going on? It was enough, see, that now this is a kind of give you the size of this group. They were a 3-story building. They had 2 Lear jets. I mean, it wasn't a small shop, okay? And they decided to take a little corner of their building and start doing some research. Lo and behold, they eventually had all kinds of really high-tech tools, okay? It was like, the slobber over, you walk in, you go, oh my gosh, what's going on here? It was so important and they got so successful. They had people like from Lloyd's of London flying in to get work done for cancer and stuff. I mean, that's how successful they got. This is all on the QT. And it's because of Big Pharma. So when Big Pharma was trying to play friendly in the early 1900s, it ended up causing all the hospitals to close that we used to have. And they didn't want to play nice with the homeopathic doctors. They considered it an abuse. But now today there is a college, by the way, it just happens to be in Portland, Oregon, that is trying to be naturopaths and MDs at the same time. Todd,
you would think there is room for both, right?
Well, you would think you could do either or, but there is not enough time in your life to do everything in the drug world and everything in the indie world, and they don't agree, but I agree. I say no. There are 15,000 homeopathic formulas that the alternative guys use. That's not even the supplements and the high-tech labs that today, supplement companies have gone high-tech. And you know, there isn't one thing in your body. You're not born short of Advil. You know, you're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right? Because you can be a type 1 diabetic. Oddly, people don't know this. So, Todd, I think I ought to tell them. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body.
Right.
So when they make insulin available to the people, they only do it because 30% of America needs it. Can you believe that? That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And, you know, so when I went to testify at the committee, by the way, Intel committee, and it's a long story, and how come, because of all I just told you about, I went and stopped. By the way, I stopped the West Nile virus in Oklahoma. Okay.
Excellent.
I got it stopped. And so that kind of, you know, put me on the map. By the way, I did get death threats. They started in about 2009 when H1N1 came out. I've had colleagues shot, murdered. Okay. So when this came out, the COVID, as we call it, it got labeled like a marketing thing of COVID, but the legal name known in the labs is SARS-CoV-2, right? You know that. So they wanted to have something to hang the hat on, but they didn't want you to hear it was SARS. You know why? Because SARS is that's a sun onset kind of respiratory disease. It's kind of bad. And it was in the Mideast when it broke loose. And they didn't want you to know that SARS was involved in COVID. And the reason why is they got SARS stopped in the Mideast in a heartbeat by, guess what? Using hydroxychloroquine.
Oh, wow.
And ivermectin. And it was, boom, dead. They couldn't let you know there was SARS in this thing. Well, what am I trying to say? When I testified to them, I brought an electron microscope printout from the head of a pathology of a well-known university called Washington University School of Medicine. And the guy that gave it to me he felt very uncomfortable giving it. He was a naturalized Chinese man, okay? And he hates the CP. They hate him more than you and me, Todd, that's kind of probably hard to do, but I guarantee you this guy does.
I'm sure. He's probably had real life experience. Yeah.
He has. So what he gave me was a printout, and the printout was that showed on the printout, believe it or not, was that this was a coronavirus, which is a cold virus because of the protein spikes on the outside of this, thing. And what was inserted into it could only have gone in there by gain of function research.
Right. And we know that now. That's come out. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I told them this in the middle to late 2020, the first time. I knew about it in October of 2019. And I sent the papers out, the evidence way ahead of time to some people. It just didn't work, So what else is in it? There's SARS and there's MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. And then there were 3 variants of HIV. Those variants of HIV would not make you and I sick, okay? The reason why is our immunity is normal. Todd, you and I have been living side by side of people that have AIDS or, that kind of problem for decades.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've been in the grocery stores with us, right? And I'm sure that we might have breathed a little bit of something from them. But you know what? Our immune system works. It can even get rid of AIDS.
Sorry about that. The mute was on. I'm going to stop the video there. We're kind of running out of time this episode. We're going to play the rest of the interview with Dr. Waterman tomorrow. The rest of it's fascinating, talking about nutrition. He was really kind of giving his background there, but stay tuned tomorrow. Second hour, we'll play the rest of that, and I think you'll find it really interesting. We had a funny thing happen in Connecticut. We have a Connecticut paper, the Connecticut Sentinel, spelled the old-fashioned way, ConnecticutSentinel.com. Let me bring that up. So if you're in the Connecticut area, you can check it out. It's really impactful paper in Connecticut. And there was an event with Chris Murphy, Senator Chris Murphy, the town hall, and our staff went there. And there's a fantastic article on the Sentinel right now about the questions they asked and the response from the crowd and the response from the senator. But what was really humorous is the bipartisan bathrooms they had outside, and the public's response to all of this non-gender bathrooms. So we're going to play this and hope you'll have a chuckle here as we end this episode. There was a lot of confusion there with the public as to what to do with a gender neutral bathroom that you walk into. Sorry about this. But anyway, we'll see you next time on the SCIF. We got a lot in today. We'll have more tomorrow, some more great guests. And we're just pushing it out as fast as we can get it. So please support us, tell your friends about us, and we'll see you tomorrow on the SCIF.